I was born for this division. And I'm coming for everyone.
The man on the left-hand side of the screen that's not Matt or I, Juancamilo Ronderos, coming off of one of the most strange and bizarre UFC debuts I think we've ever seen in our entire lives, nearly 2 years ago, is going to be taking on the Dana White's Contender Series contract-winning concrete Clayton Carpenter. Matt, do you think he's like one of those guys that when they decide to pour a sidewalk, he's the first kid that stuck his hands in there, and now as an adult at 26, he's still pulling that same
Probably. It's probably just a big bit that he has, and all of his friends are like, all right, come on, Triple C, get over it.
Look at how big my feet are. I'm still a cool guy. But Matt, I want to flip it on back to Juancamilo Ronderos for just a second, because it was announced on May 21st by the man with the blue shirt, John Morgan, that Ronderos would be stepping in on 1 day's notice to take on David Dvorak. And when you look at that matchup, Matt, Paiva versus Dvorak, that would have been a fun fight. Ronderos versus Dvorak, well, you look at it and you go, okay, Ronderos is 4-0 at the time, which isn't much of a pro record.
Can I say this just really quick? Ronderos was almost a victim of his own success, though, because that was the big conversation coming into the UFC. He beat Eric Shelton, and to some of you guys, that might not mean that much, but that is a former UFC fighter who has a very good level of competition.
Eric Shelton had a decent UFC run, and for Ronderos, at just 4-0, well, he was already, 9-0 as an amateur. He's 4-0 as a pro. He's getting wins against guys that you want to see him to get wins against, I guess, if I can put it that way. But you look at it, and he weighed 128.5, which isn't good. And then he goes into the fight, and he tries to land a couple of shots on the outside, but he's got big resets, and he gets hit, he gets clipped, and then after he gets clipped, he gets his back taken, and he gets choked out. And it was a really, really tough one, because that rear naked choke was in there quite tight. But you miss weight, you're plus 400 underdog, all right, you're going to get another opportunity. Except he gets suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for marijuana and cocaine, and then he's off on a crazy long layoff. USADA kind of dealt with the marijuana or the cocaine on its own, but out of all of that, a big suspension. It was a 9-month suspension, and then he had a freak accident. So I listened to an interview that he did February 5th. It came out with JHK, All-Star MMA, and he went down through it. He said he was out for 9 months after, not just due to the suspension, but due to the fact that he dislocated his elbow, tore everything up over there. Initially, the first doctor said you need surgery. The second doctor, according to him, was the doctor that worked on Francis Ngannou's knee. He said you don't need surgery, just work on it, rehab it on your own. So for Ronderos, really long road to recovery out of all of this. If you go over and you follow on his Instagram page, lots of follows for Ronderos, but he's really kind of coached. It looks like it's been kind of the cardio kickboxing over at Extreme Couture, but Ronderos has taken a nice approach to his coaching, and he's really kind of leaned into the UFC PI in the time away. Said he saved about $3,000 to $4,000 on meal prep, on all the training, on all the fact that they have sports psychologists there, and he's a huge proponent for all of that. So you love to see that out of a guy that's based in Vegas, whose nickname is the 100 Emoji. I thought I'd just throw that one in there for fun, but that is his nickname. But when I look at Ronderos, Matt, did he get shafted in a debut against a guy like Dvorak?
Easily.
110% he did. Does it suck that he got suspended for the no sugar and the green bud? You bet your ass it does. Now, they're not doing him a huge favor in taking on a guy like Clayton Carpenter, who does have quite a bit of hype, undefeated prospect, which is where Ronderos was coming into the UFC.
Dvorak on a day's notice, though.
That is true. But this should be a fun fight because of what you already said. I mean, if you look at it for Ronderos, trains Extreme Couture with big-time names, Amir Albazi, Manel Kopp, and the guys that weigh heavily, like a Dan Ige, guys that are going to get you ready and prepared for a guy like Clayton Carpenter.
Well, that's the thing about Ronderos. He does have a good skill set that has synergy with that kind of a gym. He has very good takedowns. He has very high-level submissions. He does like to go for the back a lot. He is more of a back taker, I would say, kind of a grappler. And this might not be the best comp, but a guy whose name has been in the headlines a lot this week is like Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee is thought of as a wrestler, but he's not really a wrestler like Kamaru Usman or like Colby Covington. He is kind of a wrestler into a back taker. And of course, for Juancamilo, that's kind of the higher sell of him. But that's very much the skill set that he will like to employ, but I will be curious to see how is his striking going to look against Clayton Carpenter, because Carpenter is so talented on the outside with a lot of his straight shots, and if that is going to be the story of the fight, I think it's going to be very difficult for Ronderos to not only get on the inside and have success with his own striking, but that's how he's going to have success with his own grappling too, and I really think distance for Ronderos is going to be the most important thing he has to manage in this fight, because if he is able to get on the inside and on the outside of range without really being tagged for his troubles, he could have a lot of success, but those are things that rely heavily on rhythm, and how do you get rhythm in an MMA fight or in a UFC contest?
You get rhythm if you got the blues.
but also by being in there and just being consistent in the UFC octagon. And for Ronderos, I do worry a little bit about that time off. I was excited about him just getting the opportunity to make his UFC debut, because that's the one good thing about a prospect taking a very difficult matchup, is normally if they lose, the UFC is still going to keep them around for another performance, hopefully another 2. For Ronderos, I do think that there is a skill set there that he could unlock with his submission ability. I just think this fight's going to be difficult with the takedown defense of Carpenter and with his ability to stay on the outside, because again, if Ronderos isn't able to crowd that distance, I don't really know how he's going to be able to win rounds.
Yeah, for Ronderos, you're taking on Clayton Carpenter, one of the uber prospects that's out there. 6-1 as an amateur from 2015 to 2018. From 2019 on, 6-0 as a pro. And this is a guy, Matt, like, if you look at it, he fought on a show called Iron Boy MMA 16. That's where he debuted in Phoenix, Arizona. If you look at Carpenter, he's an MMA lab guy. So you're going to have the Benson Henderson connection, but Kyler Phillips is a main training partner. And if you look at it for Carpenter, the accolades outside of the mixed martial arts cage: USA Junior National Muay Thai champion, 4-time Muay Thai national champion, junior Golden Gloves champion, World Junior Grappling and Pancration medalist. He beat Aaron Pico in pure pancration in 2009, and an IBJJF world champ, gi and no gi. And if you look at it, the fight that he had on Contender Series last year, it was against a short notice replacement for Steve Erceg. It was Edgar Chairez, and we talked about Edgar Chairez on this channel as being a very good litmus test, because Chairez, what's he going to do? Light you up on the outside. And what did he do in the first round? Skill check, lit him up on the outside in the first round, blew up that right eye for Carpenter, which forced Carpenter to make the adjustment in the fight to then wrestle and pour on his own pressure. And I liked what I saw out of Carpenter kind of getting through that first round.
I'm curious to get your take on this, though. The flyweight division seems to be filled with these ready-made prospects. Like, the second they come into the division, not that, you think they can become top 15 contenders immediately, but Tatsuo Taira, Makayev, like, there's some really talented fighters here. Do you think Carpenter is of that caliber? Will he need a little bit more time before he does refine? Because I feel like he will need a couple of performances against the likes of like a Juancamilo Ronderos for him to then realize that type of a ceiling.
Shorty Torres is one of those guys that had that huge record, and he didn't seem to be made ready, but it seemed like he needed a little bit of testing. Carpenter, to me, is one of those guys, and Dana White, after the fight on Contender Series, kind of echoed that. He said, I saw some mistakes that he made tonight, but, he fought a tough dude. So if you do like that, Matt, Clayton Carpenter also sounds just like Michael Chandler in Batman, as I said in the intro. Go listen to some of his quotables. The guy's way too intense for being a 6-0 flyweight, but he's a 6-0 flyweight, and I'm talking about him. So, Matt, when we look at this matchup right here, you have a look at the odds in the fight, and there's not a lot of sites that have them out just yet. Clayton Carpenter, a big favorite, open minus 350, minus 325 or thereabouts. Ronderos open plus 285. He's a plus 260. So that brings us to the Tapology votes. We talked a lot about this fight, both guys' skill sets. For Carpenter, I know he has all of the skill sets that are shiny outside of MMA, but he does mix them into his fights. The only thing is, sometimes he's got to try and figure out his way in some of these fights. And against a guy like Ronderos on the outside, that could be difficult. But the Tapology votes, we'll just go there really, really quick. I'm going to say over under 75% Carpenter due to the inactivity and just the record on the page for Ronderos.
I think they'll be well over.
You think they're going to be well over? Way over. 461 total votes, 95% Carpenter, 69% by decision. But you've talked a lot about Ronderos.
I can call myself out. Listen.
Yeah.
You gotta be your own worst critic, and I thought Ronderos was gonna be really good coming into the UFC. I was really impressed by the film study that I had done going into that David Dvorak fight. But again, hindsight being what it is, and again, with all of those lengthy layoffs, I do worry about him in this matchup. Again, I like the skill set that he has. I think locked away in there deep in the way confines of the closet, there's a good fighter there. I just don't think it's Clayton Carpenter we're going to be able to see it. I do think Carpenter is the much more well-rounded fighter, and if he is able to just find that one avenue where he can have success, I think he'll just be able to stick to the game plan and rinse and repeat.
We'll see about the injury and the layoff for Ronderos, not just due to hitting the slopes, but the fact that, he did have that elbow injury. We'll see how that plays into his striking, but for me, I do have concrete Clayton Carpenter, Monsieur Baton, to spin it up and put his hands in it. Both of us going with Clayton Carpenter, the MMA Lab, to get the win. Let us know who you have down below in the comments section. It's a Fight Night Pick special with all of these prospects. We're going to try and hit it out of the park. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.